San Diego County. Think Qualcomm, think Viasat, Illumina, some of the big guys around town. Just recently, Apple, who has relocated to San Diego, has become an investor of our organization. So that was exciting news. And those entities support our work so that we can build up the economy in our region, meaning we can support the small and medium-sized businesses that really need the most help, and we can do that free of charge. So think of us as a business consulting service, but because of the nature of our being a nonprofit, we do it for free. Is of real value to our businesses in town. And I am our marketing communications director. So I lead all of our branding of the organization, all as a means of communicating our value to our stakeholders and to the region at large. But secondly, and probably the most fun part, is I market San Diego as a means of bringing in further investment and talent and business into this region. So when Amazon was looking to set up their second headquarters, if you recall that a couple years ago, EDC, my organization, actually led the proposal to convince them to relocate here. So that's just a small example of the services that we can offer.
And this is a different question that just came to mind. So obviously you would think San Diego, easy to market, right? So you already talked a little bit about what your favorite part of the job is. And you said that's marketing San Diego, right? But how hard is it to actually market when we've got, we're kind of locked in with either the border, and right now during COVID, we're not doing a lot of cross-border partnerships. We've got the ocean on the other side. We've got kind of a desert on the other side. How do you market to businesses coming in here when we've got taxes and lack of water? Talk about that a little bit, because it's a hard market, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think California as a state is not the first thing businesses think of when they think of expansion because of the cost of doing business. And while that's fair, my job is really to debunk a lot of the myths that San Diego County is only good for beer and burritos and beaches. And
which are good.
Yes, well also, though I know this class knows nothing about beer yet, but
yeah, or not.
It's our job to really profile the way in which we are a competitive innovation economy that can hold our own against the likes of Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, New York City, Chicago, Boston. Think of all of the major technology and science hubs around the country and even around the world. Well, San Diego really keeps up, and really now more than ever, we're seeing record inflows of venture capital and major companies relocating into this region, and existing companies expanding that are already here and doubling down on their footprint to really capitalize on the talent coming out of our universities. So Point Loma very much included, but UCSD graduates more STEM grads than I think any school in the country. So those are really attractive traits to companies that are highly profitable and pay really quality wages, which is what is most important to us in the way of economic growth.
Yeah, I thought about a couple of years back when Teradata relocated here, which was a major win for the San Diego economy, and so that was great. Would you say, this is another question that just popped into my head, sorry. We had just finished talking about marketing and the marketing mix. So would you say when you're marketing San Diego, is it more the product, or is it, or does that even apply to what you're trying to do? Can you fit, that into those, 3 Ps and the D or not?
Yeah, so it's been especially interesting because I've now had an experience of selling to a consumer being a spine surgeon while at NuVasive, and have this interesting contrast to working here at EDC where San Diego is my product and my customer is the business community, is talent, like those in this room who we hope to stay in San Diego upon graduation and stay and work and grow jobs and lives in this area. And it's also just the external market. And as I mentioned, those who might think San Diego is something that it's not, or might ignore some of the strengths that our region can offer. So to answer your question, yes, my product as a marketer is San Diego County and all of the things that make up our value proposition. So it's our job to really know from a data-driven perspective, but also from an anecdotal kind of storytelling perspective, who we are, like what is our product, what is our value, and then how and who to communicate that to. Because we'll be the first to admit San Diego isn't for everyone. It's not for every business. But if you're a technology, life sciences, a lifestyle company, you should be here.
Yeah, I love that. Just you talking about telling stories as opposed to, data, like being able to tell specific accomplishments of companies that have come in. So that's beautiful. So let's move on to what was it about marketing? Because were you a managerial organizational? No, you were a marketing major?
So no, yet another quirk in my story. I had no intention to grow up and be a marketer. I was a political science student and I got a minor in women's studies. So I was big on the HPS train and really passionate about advocacy and humanitarian rights, excuse me, and wanted to change the world, as I think many of us in this room do. And at 18, when declaring a major, I thought I wanted to go to law school, and often a prerequisite or a nice segue into law school is political science. I grew up in a very apolitical household. My mom just registered to vote in the last election with my begging.
Oh, that's funny.
So it was an interesting decision for me, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I found my stride. I found my passion in those 4 years at Point Loma. And the only reason I really looked at this organization is because it was a nonprofit and because they were mission driven and making a difference in the community that I wanted to call home for a long time. And now it's been over a decade and I'm still in San Diego.
Yeah. And so was there one thing about marketing that, or I know you said you kind of fell into it, but was there one skill or was there one piece of that or was it just the EDC? Was it the company?
So we'll probably get into this later, but in selling myself to the organization in the interview process, the role was communications coordinator. So a lot of it was really writing intensive and content creation. And because as a political science student, I wrote endlessly. I mean, we were writing 30-page papers every other month in every class. So I was able to really advocate for myself in that way because I was a strong writer. Interestingly, though, I had a pretty rude awakening when I was hired and started this role, because to write like an academic is so much different than writing like a marketer. And it was almost a language and a vernacular that I needed to learn. So I was fortunate to do it in a place that, offered a lot of grace and a lot of training. We're just 20 people total, $4 million budget. So a really lean team, but I had the hand holding I think I needed to really learn that language.
What do you think is the difference? Because I talk to students a lot about, writing more succinctly, writing, more to inform. I mean, what do you think the difference was between how you communicate as an academic or in academics as opposed to what you do now? How do you write? How do you communicate?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, succinct is best. Think of yourself as a consumer you do not want to read a 30-page academic paper. You want to read 2 sentences that summarize in full what you need to know, why you need to know it, and then how to move next, where to move next. Am I buying this thing? Am I going to this place? Like, what is my call to action? So it's those 3 things that you need to get out in. I think the average data shows like the average person's attention span is about 30 seconds. That's in reading and in interaction with digital media. So you need to be quick and succinct. Yeah. And I think it was quite the opposite in trying to get to 30 pages in my scope and methods class.
Yeah. And then did that help you? I'm sure being in the industry helped you along the way when you were in your MBA as well, like writing proposals, writing strategic plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in my work, it can become very templated. So proposals, for instance, like you always have a goal and a mission statement at the top. You'll have objectives, you'll have roles and responsibilities, timeline, like those things are foundational. And if you have those, I found I can fit that into whatever box or whatever role I need to fit it into.
Yeah. Have you seen, speaking of mission statement, have you seen any in the time 5 years off you've been with the EDC? Have they rebranded or done anything like that? Have you been a part of that? What did that look like?
Yes, actually, I have a ton of pride in a revision to our mission statement, which occurred in about 2018. To include the word inclusion, economic inclusion as a mission for us and as a business imperative for our community. And that was really meaningful to me, as our key goals center around talent and the development of all San Diegans in every corner of our county, regardless of access to education and to transportation and to major employment hubs. And then a focus on small businesses, which actually make up the majority of our economy. It's really easy to think about Qualcomm and Illumina as being the major employers, when in fact 98% of our workforce is employed by small businesses, and they are just statistically the least prepared to weather economic downturns like the one we're currently facing, and have the least access to digital tools and to advertising budgets that some of the other guys have. And then the third is just affordability, and that's housing and cost of living. So those 3 pillars really are what EDC hangs our each and every program and initiative on. And if those are not in line with the work that we're doing, then we shouldn't be doing that work. So inclusion was a really big facet of not our rebranding per se, Nick, but just a part of a revision of our mission that was really necessary.
Yeah,
I can talk
that.
about branding and things if you like that.
Yeah, I love, and I've spoken about this in class, just in terms of when we speak about business ownership, and I don't think people do realize, I always use and I think it comes from the EDC website, 90% of all companies in San Diego have fewer than 100 employees. And I don't think people actually realize what type of a small market we really are. They see Qualcomm, they see Illumina or Viasat, and that's just not the case. Yeah, not the case. I think and it impacted us so much during COVID because that's who we are. But that's why we're here. Yeah.
Exactly. We saw a percent change of 50% in the number of businesses open in San Diego, and they were all small businesses that took the hardest hit. And now, as an organization, it's our mission to really get those companies back online and back on their feet, doing what they need to do.
Yeah, it's one of the things I appreciate about the work you do, and just the EDC and Mark and the thing just amazing. Because again, we live here, we work here, we play here, and it should be a place for everybody. It really should. I'm gonna jump off my soapbox there for a second. So let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about hiring. So what would be, if we've got some marketing students here, quite a few, what would be, let me see, what's the best one? I guess the characteristics, or let's do this one. What's the best way for a new grad to even start in that? Because I get the question a lot where marketing students will say, well, I want to go to a big company, or maybe I want to go to a small digital firm. What do you think is the best initial path for a marketer right out of school?
Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, a key point advice, which won't come as a surprise to the class, but be sure that you're interning and even volunteering your time during your time as a student, because there are a lot of privileges that come with wearing a student hat instead of wearing a new grad, I'm looking for a job hat. And I think people are more willing to offer advice and input and spend time in informational interviews when you're a student. So I just first and foremost recommend that. And then like a lot of it is just the preparation, which comes when you're a student. So building your resume is essential, but I think it can be really discouraging because you're applying for internships that require some experience, but the point is you don't have experience and you're trying to get experience. So I definitely know that struggle and I've been there. But when I was hired at this organization, as I mentioned, I was a waitress, and my hiring manager had also waitressed through college and worked in food and hospitality. And we could have a conversation about how my skills in that role were relevant to this role. So I knew how to sell myself. I knew that because I had worked at a busy restaurant, for instance, I was quick on my feet. I had thick skin. I knew how to manage money. I was a people person. I could talk to anybody. So I was able to really pivot that story to be one that would be perfect for this new role in a more professional business environment. So I also had at the time on my resume, I had that I was an RA. I had that I was a tutor. I had, of course, some of my internships that were relevant, both because I had served in a nonprofit and because I had worked at a PR firm. But otherwise, it's okay to include the work that you've done that's a little bit different, so long as you know how to connect the dots. So I would really recommend that. And then otherwise, treat the interview process when you are out of school as an interview for you as well. Meaning if you sit down with a hiring manager and you don't like their vibe, you get a weird feeling, you're not simpatico, like lean into that and take that seriously. And if offered a job that you still have that weird feeling about, you do not need to take it. And I have an interesting story about that. I took the wrong job right out of college and thank God found my way here shortly thereafter. But treat that process as an interview on both sides and be sure that you're understanding the leadership style and the expectations and the dynamic and the culture of the business that you'll be entering into as a staff person, because that's just as important, if not among the most important.
That's such great advice. I appreciate that, Bree. That's yeah, it's as much about what you're trying to get out of the company as what they're trying to get out of you as an employee, for sure. What do you think? Again, I speak to my marketing students a lot about, hey, while you're in school, look at Google Analytics certification, look at, are there any specific skills as a hiring manager, as a leader, that you look for if you were hiring a new grad? specific to marketing, whether it's Adobe or what do those look like?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, interpersonal skills are what I look for. So self-starter, confidence, motivated, passionate, kind. Interestingly, kind really matters, probably just given my industry, but I think across the board, there's a humanity to hiring that I'm really fascinated by lately. But on the experience side, I would, as far as tools are concerned, I have been really impressed by certificates like Google Analytics, as you mentioned. A few of my newer colleagues are pursuing a digital marketing certificate that, while they didn't study marketing in undergrad per se, they demonstrated an interest in the industry and were curious about learning more and actually did go on to learn more. But more technically speaking, so I can be helpful, a lot of platforms that we're using these days include WordPress and just different web management systems, MailChimp, or major email marketing platforms like Constant Contact is another really similar platform. Lucky for, I think, for this new workforce entering into jobs, the expertise of and knowledge of social media is great. You can probably imagine what it was like about 10 years ago to enter into a marketing role where these things were only just kind of entering into the stratosphere. So the expertise that you have just on your personal channels, that can be touted. Like if you have a viral this or a viral that, and it's appropriate to share with an employer, like those in this industry, that's really interesting. So that's great too. And then number one is to do your research. When you are at an interview, if you don't know who you're talking to, where they went to school, who their like network is, and then more explicitly what the company does, what is their mission statement, who are their customers, what are they selling, then don't go to the interview, because I've seen many people flop. I had a person tell me when I asked, so what do you know about our organization? Verbatim, oh, what's on the website? Like, no, yes, of course, I'm asking you to reiterate it back to me.
Yeah.
And by the way, I built that website, so I need you to tell me.
Yeah, that's funny.
So research is of top priority too.
Do you think it's important, again, when it comes to a marketing person, it spans data, understanding your customer, all the way to the creative piece, the sales piece. Do you think it's more important to be singularly focused? Like I'm interested in data, I'm just so good at data, or more well-rounded. If you need me to pitch in and do a ad, I can do that on Adobe. I can do some analytics. I can do some SEO work. More important to be focused, more important to be well-rounded in marketing, do you think?
Yeah, my gut is to say well-rounded. However, I think it really depends. If you want to go on to be a market researcher or a data scientist, there requires a certain degree of expertise that is necessary. However, in an organization like mine, where our marketing team is just 4 people, we all need to know it all, and we all have a foundational understanding of most every platform, from the Adobe Creative Suite to Canva to Premiere and video, and where we can be really scrappy and really budget conscious, because we have to be, given the nature of our organization. But an example is, given my time at NuVasive, that's $1 billion corporation. So I went from EDC, the graphic designer, the email marketer, the social media manager, the blog writer, all in one, to well, there was one person who did the social media, there was one person who did the graphic design, there was one who did web management. So it really just depends on the industry and the resources of where you're stepping into. But you're at a liberal arts college, so well-rounded is the answer.
Yeah.
That's the point. That is the value of the education you're pursuing right now. And I can certainly attest to, you know, the business class, the music class, the art class, the religion classes, like those made me better equipped to talk to people and to interact in this world. So that alone is great.
I appreciate that. Before, we only got a couple more minutes. I do have a couple more questions, but does anybody have a question they want to ask of Bree? I know you sent me all of these questions, so I appreciate that. But anybody have one that's popped up? Marketing? Okay, these are all their questions anyway. So, difference between marketing, because many of our students decide they also want to go into nonprofit. Difference between marketing and nonprofit versus for-profit. Is there a difference, or is it about the same? You've experienced both?
So yes and no. Above all, as I've sort of touched on, it's important to know what you're selling. So know your product and know your customer, and the skill sets that I have were relevant across both sectors. So again, I wore many hats in my first round at EDC. And then when I went to Nuvasiv, really interestingly, I was sort of like pinned back down to just maybe one or two hats. But because I had different degrees of understanding about different platforms, I was able to make suggestions to my video team about ways to show content more dynamically. So in that way, I've been really excited to learn that marketing as a skill set is applicable across industries and across sectors. I mean, churches need marketing staff. They have collateral and PowerPoint decks and talking points and speaking engagements that require a creative team. There are, I mean, the usuals, tech and life sciences, of course they need marketing, but they also need product marketing. And those folks work with engineering sometimes instead of with the customer. So I've just been really impressed by the way in which my skill sets now can be applied across really any business. And I think that's really cool.
Awesome. I didn't tell you this, but I should have told you this up front. I did record this, if that's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna share it with the other class, because I have two sections, and so I'm gonna share it with them. I'm gonna put it up on Canvas. So,
okay.
Last question. Any piece of advice, like one piece, you were sitting in their seats at one point, obviously, and it's just one piece of advice for most of my students here are freshmen. Many are, you know, some are sophomores, but for the most part, they're starting their time here with Point Loma. Yeah, what piece of advice, one piece you would give them?
Gosh, so many.
Hmm.
Now that I understand the class is really in the early stages of the college ride, I would just say enjoy it and enjoy the ride and do everything you can to get involved and to maximize your time in that place. This is I mean, you hear this tirelessly, but this is a generation of students who have entered into a time in our world that has been pretty catastrophic. And with that comes a lot of resiliency and grit that I don't think many students before you have. So use that to your advantage, and to the degree that you can, again, do everything. You are at a college of a few thousand people, and with that comes a lot of privilege in the way of building relationships and expanding your network. I sat and Nick, you'll get a kick out of this. I sat last night with Dr. Beal over dinner for 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
Science professor who 6 years later remains a key mentor and now a friend to me. And I went on to go to UC San Diego, a 30,000 student population. My professors didn't know my name. So there's something so valuable, and you're certainly paying for it to get to lean into those relationships and that network that to this day, in large part because I'm still in San Diego, but I still talk to Nick every other month. I still am engaged in the community. So lean in to the degree that you can, because it will come back to serve you in tenfold, and then you can in a few years' time be sitting where I am. And then the last, I know I'm blabbing, I apologize, but the last piece of advice is just that it will be okay, period. And I needed a lot of that affirmation, I think, especially my freshman year, leaving home and leaving my mom, for the first time in my life. I came out of Point Loma a better person, a more well-rounded person. And it's because I took seriously the opportunity I had to be a student and to really dig in. So just know it will be okay. And in 4 years' time, San Diego companies will be waiting to hire you. Point Loma has a very good reputation in our business community, and that is a really good thing. So that's all.
Thank you so much, Bree. I really appreciate you. Is it okay? Some of our marketing students may want to connect with you on LinkedIn. Is that thumbs up?
Yes, please.
Good.
We also, if there are any newly approaching seniors, we are hiring right now for an entry-level coordinator on our World Trade Center team. And then otherwise, we have internship opportunities available every 6 months. So we'll be hiring for interns to begin in January, and that'll run through June of next year. So, and we partner with universities to offer credit, and they're paid internships in marketing, in economic development, and in research.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll make sure they get that information for sure, because I just know it's a great organization, does a lot of great things. So thanks again, Bree. Really appreciate you. And I'll have them connect with you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Appreciate you having me.
Thanks, Bree. Have a good one. Okay. Yay. Golf clap. Okay. Let's see. Leave meeting. Record. Stop meeting. I hate this, right? This thing comes up and says, "Oh, you need to shut down your computer." No. End meeting.